Hi everyone, Beth Sager here today with the Lex Local, and I'm sitting here with my friend Tina McBride, who's running for planning board. Yay!
Yay!
So it's, there's a lot of controversial stuff going on these days with the planning board. So tell us sort of your take on things.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I'm hoping that because there's so much going on, we're going to get more people to the polls, right? Because we need more people to vote. I think that part why more people are paying attention is because there are things that are happening in people's backyards, and while they may not have been paying attention before, now they don't have a choice. It's right there. It's up front. The planning board for a while was pushing the MBTA communities, Article 34, and it's here and it's happening. And it's happening at a much faster rate than a lot of people thought. And so as a result, I think a lot of people are becoming aware and are concerned and want to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think can be done?
Well, Article 2 right now is designed to kind of roll things back a little bit. The basis for MBTA communities was that we have this horrible housing shortage in Massachusetts, and the state was trying to figure out how to address it. Looked at 177 communities that had bus service or MBTA service of some kind. Just so happens we have some bus service. We're considered MBTA adjacent because we don't have a bus station in Lexington, but we're adjacent. So we have just enough bus service. They used some formula that the state did, and said, okay, we're going to ask Lexington for 50 acres at a density of 15 units per acre to create some housing. It's not affordable housing, It's just housing.
Right.
And what they stated in the act, the MBTA Communities Act, was if a town wanted to have some housing, they could ask for up to 10% affordable housing. Lexington decided to commit 250 acres instead of 50 and assured us the development would be slow based on metrics they had from highly permitted developments, single-family home developments. Just some of the metrics they were using weren't necessarily going to line up with what we were seeing in MBTA communities. And so a lot of us had gotten together and said, okay, we need an amendment. Failed. So here we have communities bylaw. And in less than 2 years, we've already almost satisfied the request from the state. The original ask was 1,231 units be allowed to be developed with this rezoning. And so currently we're at 1,100, although we know that there are a number more in the pipeline. So some estimates are it'll be like 4,000. And a reminder, we only have like 12,000 households in Lexington.
Right.
So it's a huge increase in households in a very short amount of time, which is a concern. So number 2 is, Article 2 is what we can do to kind of put the brakes on a little bit, reassess. And one thing I really want to do, if I'm able to get on the planning board, I want to use the comprehensive plan, which is a tool that Lexington develops to determine what it is that residents in Lexington say they want. And for decades, we've talked about we want a more affordable housing, we want more affordability, we want workforce housing, we want senior housing, we want housing for families that want to move into Lexington, young families, middle-class families. So it's interesting to me that there were a number of people that thought MBTA communities was like this panacea for us. And it wasn't designed to create anything that we wanted in Lexington.
That's not good.
No. And there's lots of things we can do. There are so many other tools that the state allows us to use to create affordable workforce, senior housing, all this stuff. And I want to get in there and start exploring.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. I mean, and the planning board is kind of in charge of all of this.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. So it
Yeah.
would be nice to be able to get in there and muck around a little bit. I say muck around a little bit, but the reality is that planning takes a lot of thoughtfulness. It should be incremental. And Article 34, MBTA communities, was not incremental. It was this huge sweeping change. It was this, blunt force instrument that should have been used more carefully.
Okay. So what else? I know that's sort of the big one that everyone is just so concerned about, but are there any other topics in planning that...
Yeah, I think there's really a lot of exciting things that we could do. I would like to look at condo conversions. Something that I hear over the last few decades, and something that first got me into being interested in planning, was kind of the loss of the housing that's for the missing middle, right? With all these tear downs since the 80s, since the 70s really, all these tear downs, more and more smaller housing, more affordable housing, not affordable, but more affordable housing that's been lost in Lexington. And so how do we create more opportunities for home ownership so people can create generational wealth? This is something that's been missing for a long time. So a lot of the planning is, how do you get the most out of something with the least disruption? With condo conversions, I think we could see a lot of really positive change. I want to dig into that to see what we can do. Right now, the average household that's being built is 6,000 square feet. And I know, because I know a couple people in real estate, that the bigger houses actually take longer to sell.
Oh, forever.
So if we can do condo conversions on existing homes, you have much less disruption in neighborhoods, and you're creating the possibility for home ownership in, these very large homes that could be split into two homes, creating more housing, more affordability. Not affordable necessarily, but more affordability. On the affordable housing side, there are things like 40R or 40S, where we can actually get money from the state for considerations like schools and things like that, and we can ask for much higher rates of affordable housing. The thing with the MBTA communities is the state said you can ask for 10%, and Lexington pushed back a little bit, and we can ask for 15% on buildings that have 14 units or higher. But we have a lot of small parcels, so we're not going to get many, if any, more affordable housing. And if we're going to create more housing in Lexington, everybody keeps talking about, we need diversity in housing. It's like, but we're building apartments for people who have a lot of money.
Right.
That's not a diversity.
Right.
So if we want diversity, we're going to have to build to it.
Right. So what else?
Two of the biggest things that concerned me about MBTA communities bylaw was that it reduced the setbacks on all of the building dimensions. The setbacks were reduced, the height allowances. With those two things combined, it meant density went way up. But the biggest issue for me, being such a green person, you're eliminating the space for trees. Trees are really, really important for a whole host of reasons. They scrub our air, they breathe oxygen, they manage floodwaters really, really well. They create infiltration routes for runoff. They also reduce heat island effect. And right now, what we know all over the world is that there are cities that are looking for ways to introduce green spaces into their urban areas. It's really important. With the climate changing as it is, we know increasing heat has become dangerous for a lot of people. And because we know trees are so beneficial for us for the reasons I just mentioned, it's really important that when we look at developments, that we create spaces for trees, for plantings, for people to dig in the garden. It's good for families. It's good for children, picnic areas, all of that stuff. You can't just have it over there. You know, it's like when people say, oh, solar panels are great, but let's have them over there. Well, it's much more efficient and effective to have solar where you live and to have green trees, green spaces where you live. So it's something that really is important to me. In addition to that, when you reduce the setbacks and increase height allowances, your density goes way, way up. And so the problem with the number of acres that we've committed to the MBTA communities is that the density, the population can increase so quickly. The number of households can increase so quickly. We just can't keep up. I mean, there's a reason the state asked us for 50 acres for 1,231 units. The John Bartenstein, Alan Levine, members of the Appropriations Committee, they've been in Lexington forever and ever. Super smart guys, very well respected. They finally did an analysis on what we've done with the MBTA Communities bylaw and said for every 1,000 units we're bringing, it's going to cost the town between $4 and $12 million annually. And that's not including capital expenditures. We can absorb that, sure, maybe over a 10-year period, maybe over a 5-year period.
Right.
But not every 2 years having that number go up and up and up. It's been less than 2 years and we're already where the state said we needed to be. Need to tap the brakes.
Well, is there anything else you want to share? Or are those the big items?
Well, I think those are the big items. There's also, let's see, what else? There's also ADUs.
I know, that kind of snuck in there, right?
Well, it didn't.
So,
It didn't sneak in there. That's what's crazy, because I know that when Lexington relaxed a lot of our rules, our ADU rules,
Right.
back in 2015.
yeah.
And no one ever really, well, some people did, but it really wasn't a big draw for people. And I don't know whether it was because it could be that people don't want to be landlords. The days of old when you had 3-family or 2-family buildings in Arlington, Cambridge, and Somerville, and here we had more 2-families here than we have now. Sometimes people just don't want to be landlords. Or it could be just that that the town has not made people aware of the possibility. I mean, I do feel like, you know, when I hear, well, we're transparent, you know, there's transparency, but the reality is I think that we can do a lot better job at letting people know what some of the options are. I'd like to we can do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's different now, right? Used to be that everybody watched the 3 stations and, you know, had their paper on Sunday morning, you know, sitting around reading this one paper, and there were ways in which to get information out to the community. And so it's very different now. You don't have the same vehicles passing along
You'd think it would be
information.
easier, though, on some levels,
It's splintered.
right?
It's splintered. I mean, there's people get their information from many, many, many different places. So
Right.
you have to cast a wider net.
Right.
So I think it's more of a challenge. But
Great. Well, I wish you good luck at the polls.
thank you very, very much. Please go out and vote. Bring your friends, bring your families, bring your neighbors, carpool.
Well, I'll get there. Thanks.
Thank you.